Well, hello and good afternoon. I'm glad you joined us. We're going to have some fun today. Nina Tarnuzzer, and she'll correct my pronunciation shortly. But she's with us today. We had a nice little talk before we got on here, and I'd like to introduce you. Nina, would you say hello? She's from Gainesville, Florida.
Hi, great to be here.
Well, let's ask her a few more questions. So tell me how long you've been painting, Nina.
Well, I really started painting full-time when I retired, which was about 6 years ago. I had been interested in crafts and art while I was working. And when I was in high school, I painted oil paintings and was in the Winter Park Art Festival. So I had a long gap in there.
Yeah, and your training is it's kind of contradictory kind of to artists. You're very structured. You took a field that's more analytical. Can you tell us a little bit about that field you went into? And also, is there a contradiction between that and this thing called art?
Well, I think that I was a CPA for 40 years, a lot of analytics with Medicare and Medicaid billing issues. And I think that when they talk about right brain, left brain, when I retired, I just walked out of one side of my brain into the other. I think that's true, but I think that there's also a lot of analytical opportunities in art as well, the way the brain processes what they see and skipping through whites or composition. So there's a lot more to it when you're watching or observing art.
Yeah, I think you're right. And of course, the watercolor painting, which actually is perfect time to cue this up. There's a lot of technical side of it. And a lot of people just focus on throwing paint. Especially non-watercolor artists view that watercolor is just, well, it's water and it's paint and just, kind of happens. But those who have done it, like you and I. So what I have is Nina produced a video for the Florida Watercolor Society. That was last year, the virtual convention. And I really liked it, but it was 20 minutes. So I took clips out of that, kind of put together a video that's shorter and maybe a little easier for it to watch. And it's probably about 9 minutes. So let me get that keyed up for you all and we'll get her started. Let's see, here we go. You know me, I'm always trying new stuff. Okay. There we go. There's that theme music I was looking for. Here we go.
I'm a planner. I like to do whatever I can to ensure or prevent problems as I progress through the painting. I have many friends who love watercolor and don't plan. They are inspirational and take their prompts as the watercolor changes on the paper. There's a very adaptive and flexible approach that really is particularly good for those of you who paint in a loose manner. I'm more of a cellular painter. So today we're planning and I'm showing you my steps that how to plan a painting. This is a close-up of the photo I used for the full sheet. And we're going to use as our center of interest this single flower, which is a group of these shapes. And the center of interest will be this sharp white top of this coned flower. So I want to try and get as much rotation in these and shape to these single florets or whatever you call them, these lupines, these individual flowers in this entire bloom. And then we have these soft, minty, nondescript leaves in the background. I often paint from a iPad because you can manipulate the photo and blow up or add grids. It's very helpful. I often paint from black and white photos because it's much easier to see the values and compare it to a value finder. And then adjust your colors. You're free to pick whatever colors you want as long as the value is right. And so it's time to look at a value study. And I often do value studies by using tissue paper. Tissue paper over the photo or image. And this is what the value study looks like close up. And here's what it looks like. Just a simple piece of tissue paper, small. And I have blocked in the shape of the paper, go with a vertical arrangement or orientation on this painting. And we will see that there is a center of interest of white and that there are darks following almost a cruciform type shape where your eye follows the whites through the painting and that the corners are less important. This image has a Duralar over it. If you've ever tried Duralar, you can buy it by the sheet and pads, and it's a plastical kind of paper that sheet that you can draw on. And it's useful in a number of ways. I just wanted to mention that you can check the armature of your paintings. It would, of course, these type of grids would change between the size of paintings that you would use. So you might be interested in doing a Duralar of a quarter sheet or whatever size painting that you paint frequently. And I did one for this size sheet for a demonstration to illustrate that most of the activity does seem to fall in this center diamond and then follows down to a focal point here, as well as our original plan focal point, getting pretty close to that. This is the most common point in Western paintings, is this upper left quadrant. I think it has something to do that we read from left to right. And I've also allowed some entry of the eye from the bottom of the painting to get up and move around with these whites. I did a sample sheet of the paints that I've selected for this painting. Some that can get to very dark values, some that are beautiful but get stuck at mid values, and a selection of colors that will help us shift these colors from cool to warm, or modify them in a way to get the color that we need. For example, here is a Prussian blue, which is a very cool blue, but if you add rose, it will move very quickly to a warm blue and then into the purples. I've also run this blending line into the Viridian and included mixes with mint julep, which is an American Journey paint, and leaf green, and mixes with the lemon yellow with cerulean, and then all our selected colors with rose. It's really helpful to know what these paints are going to do before you put them on your 300-pound paper. This is Indian Throne blue, and it can be very dark, but it does have a significant color shift. So look for the color shift in Indian Throne. Okay, so those are our color selections. So let's start with the first wash. I have my value scale out. I have my paper on something where it's not going to skid around on the drawing board. And I have squeezed out some fresh paint. Well, here's our painting now with the washes dried. And I've actually put in some second washes just to make them a little bit darker and more intense in purples right around this center of interest. So the contrast between the darkest dark and the lightest light will help guide the eye to our focal point. Here we are with the mask removed and lots of these very sharp, abrupt edges where the pigment dries right against the masking, where you take a damp eradicator brush and work those edges to soften them. Keep working with your brush, just a damp brush, to move the paint that's already on the painting. I keep a full-size matte backboard and acrylic sheet on my easel so that I can see what the painting will look like framed.
Tell me a little bit of why you picked that subject. You said it, I think it was a commission?
Oh, the bluebells were commissioned for somebody in the Dallas area.
Oh, very nice. And you do a lot of commission pieces?
Yes, I do mostly animals and people.
Okay.
So,
Which do you like better, animals or people?
animals.
Well, we won't go there.
Well, no, but I mean, we were talking before, people are hardwired to recognize humans and expression. And all you have to do on a dog is get the eyes right. And because fur's going everywhere, and expression, and that will strike a very accepting chord with the recipient.
Good. Now, one of the things that you and I talked about was kind of finding your own style. And could you share a little bit about your journey of finding your own style? Because when you look at your paintings, you definitely have a style. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Somebody told me that you don't find your style finds you. But I think that it is important in your journey is to, when you're taking classes, is to take classes from people that you like that particular style and wish to emulate so that you can focus on techniques. Now that I've taken a lot of classes from a lot of different people, I tend to take more classes from people that are similar and more realistic, and then just kind of mix it up with abstract only every once in a while, or specifically loose, just to learn those techniques and refresh on pigments and that sort of thing. But I really prefer animals and people and fauna, birds. I do a lot of birds as well. So that requires a lot of specific drawing and planning. Paint in a cellular way, which is kind of like a coloring book. You're one section instead of washes all over the painting at once. I'm going section to section, so you really need to know where you're going. So I think it probably, from my career, and it's more of an analytical approach, and it shows up in my paintings. But I'm not so detailed that when you see Lynn Pratt or Lauren McCracken, I don't go that far into detail, and I'm amazed at their talents. I'm kind of just beyond impressionism into the borderlands of realism.
Oh, cool. Use the word cellular. I've not heard that in watercolor. Can you define that a little more?
Well, if you have seen a number of painters that they draw very carefully and then they paint from one section to another. I'm trying to think of the lady that did the workshop, and she's in Japan, very clear cellular painter, where you're just
Adobe?
drawing it.
Carrie Waller.
Carrie Waller, thank you very much. Carrie is very distinctive as a one go painting from one section, doesn't go back in layers, one section and she's done.
Okay.
I'm not quite there, but I do paint in maybe 2 or 3 layers and dry in between. I'm not generally doing wet and wet.
Yeah, well, that's much different than, you know, the approach of layers and do the whole thing, isn't it? Now, I've heard people talk about their own style, and some say they have their own style, but why does it matter to have your own style, or can we just do our own thing? I guess, what are your thoughts there?
Well, if you were a musician, you could have a number of play different genres, jazz or church or opera, that sort of thing. But if generally, when you pursue your art, your expression and your voice becomes distinctive, and it's the same thing with water media. How you really express who you are just shows up, and so my work is that's my voice or my song, and so that style kind of emerges, reflective of what you got to say.
Can you tell us a little bit about the painting behind you? I keep looking at that and saying that's pretty cool. The color specifically is interesting.
Oh, thanks. That's of course I'm trying to do, of course, my new all my own photography, and I took that of a flock of sandhill cranes out on Payne's Prairie a number of years ago, and I paint from that series of photos over and over again because it was early morning light. So there was a lot of contrast between the marshy water and these mucky banks and this row of sandhill cranes that were in the light. So these are sandhill cranes flocking here in Florida.
That's a unusual size. That's not like a normal 15 by or 20 by 30 or whatever. That's something specific. You just cut the paper that size?
That's 30 inches. Is probably, what does that look like? Maybe 14 by 30.
Oh.
I do tend to like long, skinny paintings. I do quite a few of them when I'm not doing portraits.
Oh. And what the browns you used, would you say those colors were? You use, what paint do you? You say Holbein or
I use a lot of Holbein. One of my favorite sports is going through workshops where they're posting what the supply lists are by artists and making copies of it. I have a notebook of everybody's different colors that they're using for these workshops. And I like a lot of umbers. These are burnt umbers, burnt sienna, raw sienna, and then a mix of probably ultramarine blue and cobalt to mute that and mud it up.
Yeah. And you use a gouache?
I sometimes do.
Okay. And how do you use it at the end or special touch-ups, or how do you use the gouache?
Kill backgrounds so that whatever is in the front will push forward as a transparent. I like to use transparency as the focal point, and then if I want to push back a background and make it matte, or if I didn't like how the background went, it's going to be gouache.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little more about composition? You know, on your planning, you mentioned the quadrants, used the 3x3 or what's that called? 3x3x3, or I always forget the name of that. You use that a lot, and it sounds a little scientific, but yet at the end it didn't look like that. Exactly what you said was the focal where you planned. So how did you use that to get there?
Well, I like to use it in photography. If you have a grid when you're,
Oh,
might as well just start off and have the grid when you're taking photos or editing photos. And I use the grids to crop and just save a step. And that way, I initially, when I was taking pictures, I was always wishing I was lining up the flower in the middle, or thinking the initial, when you first start taking pictures, it's the thing in the middle,
Yeah.
the plant or the pitcher or the flower in the vase. But that's so symmetrical, it's boring. So what you're trying to do is, what did they say? Get people's eye to move around the painting until they buy it.
Well, I've heard that, but I never applied it. So that's pretty cool. Now, is it my understanding you do own a lot of pigments and a lot of tubes of paint?
We
I've
were
heard-
joking about that. Oh,
Yeah.
they're in bags by a bag of cool yellows and a bag of warm yellows and a bag of ochres. And yeah, I never saw a tube of paint I didn't like.
How do you organize them?
By color, and of course, all the sticks are in one group, and those Primatech ones, I keep those apart because I really love Primatech paints because they're just ground up mineral.
What's the brand of that?
Daniel Smith.
Daniel Smith. Okay. And what's your go-to manufacturer? And why would you go there? Is it specific to color or just the brand?
I am not loyal to favorites, but I like Winsor Newton Cerulean, love Schminke Ultramarine Blues. Daniel Smith has a number of colors that they don't make anywhere else, and Holbein is their burnt sienna. So yeah, it's more by pigment and how it performs, and rather than a specific brand. Although, of course, Holbein goes on sale and is very popular and is consistent. But I do like Schminke. That's a German brand. They have some really pretty paints, and of course Daniel Smith is a go-to. So there are several really good paint companies. So I tend to stick with those three.
The question came in, do you like granulating paints?
Oh yeah. Yes, yeah. If you're doing dog fur, hematite will granulate things up, or I will add granulating paints to add interest. All those cobalts and ultramarine blues and anything that'll.
Yeah, well, I've heard people say they don't like them, but I guess if you know what they can do, you use them, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, could you tell me a little bit about your first class or workshop with watercolor painting?
The first one I took? Oh, that was Lynn Ferris. And I've taken many classes from her since, but she could cover a beginner like me, and then had very advanced people. She was also a planner and will work for like a week on a drawing before she starts to paint. And that's where I kind of had this idea, is that actually putting the paint on the paper is probably the last 20% of the process. But to get it, she would manipulate the image to what she wanted. The photo she was working from didn't really, was very different than her end product, but you could see how it evolved. I still think very highly of her.
Any other classes or workshops that are notable?
Oh, I've taken a lot. There are a lot of good teachers out there. And then during COVID, a lot of them were online. So you could take some from people in Greece or France or all over the world. So there was one little glimmer of a good thing that came out of that. Not big, but it was I took advantage of it while I could. And then, of course, in Florida, there are a lot of really good teachers that come to Florida to teach on the circuit. And so I took advantage of that as well.
You teach?
Yes. Yeah, I've
Do
taken.
you have a class now, or is it online, or what do you have?
No, I usually just give workshops, and I haven't given one since COVID started. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And what do you, the workshop, what's your preferred mode of teaching? What would you like to teach about?
I taught one that was just for fun, was all alcohol links. And
Wait a minute, you said alcohol?
yes,
All
I
right.
it just
Sure,
it
that
was just a
helped.
fun class. And then using rubber stamping and
Yeah.
watercolor, custom made stamps, that kind of thing. And then I also teach how to paint a dog.
Yeah.
and portraiture, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask, what's the basic for painting a dog?
Oh, it's
Is
all
there
about
anything
the
different
eyes.
on a dog?
Nail the eyes, and it's just fur
Yeah.
and sentiment.
And do you do a cellular then painting with a dog too?
Yes. Well, because I'm doing the eyes, and if the eyes are a bust, to throw it away.
Oh,
You might as well stop right there. If you don't get expressive eyes that work well, it's over. So I just do them first, and so to save time. If it's a successful eyes, and of course noses are a little tough too, but if that's going to work, then I can make the fur and background work.
the thing I wonder about is, are you able to take your own photos, or do you have to use the photos that are provided, and does that cause a problem?
I do both. The hardest dog of all is the black dog that died 2 years ago. And you just have to go with whatever they have. And you also go out on the web and look at similar within the breed, and different lighting and that kind of thing. And you can interpret and do something with that. Of course, I prefer to take my own pictures. That way you can get them in the light. Of course, morning light from one angle is always best outside for any kind
I
of.
suppose composition is important too with dogs too, right?
Oh yeah. Think about it. If you've got a dachshund and you're looking straight down their nose, that's not telling the story as you would in a profile of a dog like a dachshund or a Doberman Pinscher versus a cute little happy dog that's always looking up at you in expression. It's kind of trying to pick what is most expressive of the breed and that particular animal.
Oh, that's cool. Different breeds. And someone asked the question, how much time do you spend on the overall painting with the eyes and nose?
Oh, actually, eyes for animals are less specific in the iris and that sort of thing than humans.
Yeah.
We have a defined, iris in there, and dogs not so much. So you kind of paint it all together, and so whether you have a winner in about 15 to 20 minutes.
Fantastic. Any of the participants, do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make? I'd like to stop for a moment and hear from you. You can make a comment. You can compliment Nina on that blue outfit she's got. Anything you want to talk about?
Hi, Nina. It's Roberta. So do you like to do cats as well, or just the dogs?
Oh, I love to do cats, but I'm not sure why people don't commemorate their cats like they do their dogs, but that's for commissions. They're all dogs. And I actually went through a period where I asked people if I could paint their cat just to make a point. I like
Okay, thanks.
Good question.
I have a question. How about horses? This is Diane.
Oh, yes. I love to paint horses. I painted horse. I remember painting horses when I was in third grade, and you
Yes.
through my little notebooks. And
Me too.
yeah, I love to paint horses.
Well, Diane, do you do horses?
I've done a number of them. We've got a farm in Kentucky, and sometimes we have horses on it. And so I'll take a bunch of pictures and do that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think horses are a little, I've never tried a horse. Well, actually I did one, but my wife rides horses and she's very critical about how they look. And she makes comments about, well, you got she'll name a part of the horse and I'll say, oh, okay. That's, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. But thank goodness that my wife will help me out there. Any other questions? Comments?
Nina, I have a question. This is Catherine. I have a question. Do you study the anatomy of different animals before you paint them?
Yes, yes, I really do. That's a good question. I have a whole notebook of bone structure for people, and then the muscles over your face, and anatomy. It's important, and the same thing with animals is their bone structure and their. My husband's interested in paleontology, so I see a lot of fossils and that kind of thing. And of course, they do have skeletal structures for contemporary animals for that purpose. So I have that access, but it's very helpful to understand that skin and fur are over a structure, and as Ron was saying, if you don't know that there's a dent behind the eyes in a horse, it doesn't look right to the person who knows that horse.
And
Yeah,
did you study art in college or no?
I didn't. I had a lot of classes when I was a kid and in high school, and then I took a lot of classes and did a lot of reading over the years. And I remember going to some class and somebody saying, kind of in a tone, she said, well, that person has a degree in fine art. And that made me think, well, I could go out and get a syllabus and see what they study for a fine arts degree, because I realized it's the focus on painting a lot of watercolor, which you don't do when you're getting a fine arts degree. That's not necessarily even a class, but it's a lot of years of drawing, a lot of years of design, anatomy, live modeling, all those things that people do professionally to pursue to get good at something. You can read on or watch YouTubes or videos. That's available to everyone now.
Any other questions? Those are good ones. Nina, could you tell us a little bit about your studio? She works out of an old bed. No, what do you work out of again? A special studio, I think.
Well, we had a porch on the north side of the house and we enclosed it. It's all glassed in. So I have a north light sunroom, which is my studio.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm really happy with it.
North light and air conditioned and really roughing it. It's tough.
Yeah, I'm right under the vent too. And I had to try and plan for light so you had plenty of light on that side of the room, but nothing that would come down and be reflective and bounce around. It took a little while to figure out the lighting out there.
Yeah, I'd like to invite anybody who wants to go to her studio going up. She lives in Gainesville. I'm sure she'd appreciate that, I bet. Yeah, right.
Nina, do you provide refreshments?
Sure. Of course.
Now, you cook too, don't you?
No, I don't. I used to bake like.
Well, if we come up and bring Kathy with us, I guarantee you some good
Kathy's the
food.
baker and cook, make anything.
Amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about Florida Watercolor Society? You are one of the advocates there. You do a little work for them, and maybe a little plug about the show coming up.
Oh, yes. The deadline for the show is right around the corner. That's June 7th. And you'll want to do that today or tomorrow so that the person processing, if there's anything wrong, can give you feedback so you can get in. So don't wait till the last minute because there might be a hitch. So be sure and do that today or tomorrow to enter. It's going to be an exhibit at come on, help me guys. We're
Punta
Gorda.
Gorda, thank you very much. And we'll have a traveling show. And Florida Watercolor Society's been around for 51 years. And the convention is coming up in September. Our registration will be in June. We have 800 active members. That's no joke. It's a very third largest organization. New York has American Watercolor Society, and California has national, and Florida is this huge state society with members like Dean Mitchell and Frank Spino. Some of the best in the world are in Florida, as it happens. So if they come to the convention, they share all this knowledge, and it's not just in demonstrations, it's in conversation. When you go out and sit down with somebody and talk about a painting, that's where I learn the most, is just in these casual comments about what's going on.
Yeah. And you're going to stay at a hotel there while you're there?
Yeah.
Somebody asked the question. Yeah. There's pretty good deal on the Sheraton. If you go to the website, you can get the discount code, and you get it for, I think, $129. So that's pretty cheap for hotels these days, I'll tell you. And so what kind of stuff are you working on now? What subject matter probably is the stuff that really gets you going?
I went out and bought a camera. I decided I was not kidding around with, if I was going to take my own photos, I was going to get a good camera. So
tell us what you got.
Nikon Z6 II. So I am out taking pictures of birds at the local zoo. Santa Fe Zoo has these big bird enclosures where they're doing interesting things. Gainesville has a water feature. I'm trying to think of the name. It's out. Sweetwater water management, and you just go out, and they have sandhill cranes and all kinds of wildlife out there. So Gainesville in this area is just a paradise for going outside and taking pictures of animals.
Yeah. Well, you live in Gainesville. You're very far from the water, Gainesville?
I'm in the middle of the state, so if you salt
Oh,
water,
wait, yeah, okay.
drive, but for rivers and lakes.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And they have trees up there too, don't they?
Yeah, we do. A lot of oak trees. We are in a different growing zone for gardening than, say, Tampa or Orlando. It's
good. Anybody have any questions before I move on? I got only have 17 more, so we have got a little time yet to get through these. But I would like to hear from anybody. Have a comment? It's really your meeting. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to know, could you give us the number of the Nikon camera? Because I've been taking birds, but I haven't had much luck with my old camera. So what's the exact number on your Nikon, please? Thank you.
It's a Z or Z series 6 II. And I picked that because it doesn't have the huge files. If you go up to 7, 8, or 9, each of those picture files are huge. So that's the break line between a lot of professionals and amateur photographers, is to just go up to the 6 II. It's a very popular camera. And and of course, you're looking for deciding between a prime lens, which doesn't zoom, and a zoom lens. And I've ordered one and the other, so I'm waiting for my big lenses to come in. So that'll be great fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's cousin Charlotte there. She's my cousin. She doesn't spell it right. You changed the spelling in your name. Huh.
Yeah.
The camera, you said it's a Z as in zebra?
They went to mirrorless cameras. So the difference is now I'm moving into it's a mirrorless, which is their Z series.
Yeah. Good. And unless I see Terry is on there. Hi, Terry. And where are you today, Terry? Are you up in Maine or down in South Carolina or Georgia or somewhere?
Other coast. Actually, I'm at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Usually she's someplace different. She's traveling around and living off her family. I mean, just having a good time. Good to see you. She had a spectacular session last week. Very well received. A lot of hits for those people that came back and looked at that video again. very good. Now, back to the question. Anybody have any before I get mine? Now, Helen, you haven't asked your important question yet.
Well, I too am a planner, so I love her planning, and I did watch you when on the Florida Watercolor Society when you did your presentation. So I very much like your style. And is there one specific tool that you use that is the best tool that you have?
I think planning and cropping photographs and getting a good value study to know where you're going to go, what the focal point will be. That's probably the most important thing before you start, is to have this, know what you're going to do.
So the main tool is any tool that would help you get the values right. So you print it out in black and white?
Yeah. Or I work from an iPad most of the time. So iPad Pro, a big one. And I thought, and another important tool is I really like those sable brushes. I know they're hard to get now, but I like sable brushes particularly for painting skin in portraits. There's just no substitute for how to put down pigment than the control you get with that particular fiber. They're coming up with really good substitutes, and I'm going to have to learn, but for now, I really like sable brushes.
Cool. And tell me a little bit about when you're painting the palette. I didn't get to see the palette, but there's like some basic questions I always ask artists, and it's awful telling. The first one is, do you keep a clean palette? There are those who don't and those who do. Are you one of those clean paleters?
I remember Kim Minichello suggested I would get frustrated that my yellows would get dirty. I always had them over down by my greens. I didn't know. Anyway, she said, just put them under the water and rinse them off. So, yeah. And do I scrub off the sections in my palette before I start new each? Yeah, I do. And then when I finish the painting, I wash it off again. But generally, if I have all those mixes, I'll use those within. So I mess it up while I'm painting, and then when I'm between painting and painting, I'll clean it or use separate palettes.
Someone asked us about your iPad. How do you use your iPad? I guess it's one of the tools. How do you use it?
Oh, well, for editing, I use. You
mean editing? You mean cropping it, or?
Or Procreate is an application where you can go in and fiddle with what the different backgrounds might look like, move things around.
What was that app called?
Procreate.
Procreate. I don't know that one.
Oh, yeah. That's
really
fun to be able to put in different backgrounds and adjust it. And you can do layers. It's really nice.
Is that an app that you have to purchase?
Yep.
Ellen, go ahead and buy it.
And
I need to buy a new iPad first. Mine's too old. Mine's first generation.
Do you actually draw on the iPad?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
With a pen, or how do you do that?
I
have an iPad, but I don't use it much.
An Apple Pen, which are easy to lose. Yay. But so start with a cheap one to see if you like it from Amazon for $24 before you pay $100 to find out you're going to lose your Apple Pen every week.
Yeah.
But
my wife uses, just so you know, I don't know if she's listening, I'll say this not too loud, but she, I bought her 2 of them, and as of date, both of them are gone. So someone's stealing them, I think. Good question. Anybody else? So the iPad, now, how do you get the composition onto the paper? You use a projector or you wing it?
Projector.
Yeah.
I do, like for the blue bonnets, I used a projector. And for portraiture, yes, I use a projector because the proportions in a face, it's just easier to figure out. It's kind of a jot or a note, notations of where things are. I'm not doing the kind of detail where the contours of the face would be, but it's where their eyebrows and where their nose and their ears hit, because that's different on everybody. And getting those proportions are really important. Sometimes it can be like,
well, you want to get it right.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
and I have a friend that actually does live drawing, takes a picture and then proofs against a projected image to make sure that she's got it lined up right. Because I do think you do see things differently if you're drawing from a 3D image and putting it on a 2D on the paper versus going from a two-dimensional image to a two-dimensional. I think there is some loss there. So you have to kind of keep that in mind, as compensation is that how you see or perceive something that's a three-dimensional object is different than as a photograph.
Good point.
And photographs lie like mad. So you have to kind of compensate for that too.
And so to get that, you use a projector and so you use a pencil and then you go from there, right? And
Right.
Okay, very good. Any of the rest of you, have any of you painted live from a live model?
Yes, I paint from a live model.
I've heard
Yeah.
people do that. How do you do that, Charlotte?
Well, I teach a class and I have the students go stand and we all draw them and we time it. Short poses to longer poses.
It forces you to paint fast then, right?
Yeah, get the total view. You get the total view.
Mhm. That's cool. I've done drawing classes in live models, but you can bring it whatever media you want, but I just never got gutsy enough to bring watercolor. That's kind of putting a lot of pressure on me, you know what I mean? We have another question here. Let's see if I can find it. There we go. Maybe there's a question. Use Photoshop?
I have tried, but Photoshop is expensive and it's complex. You have to work in it a lot, and I need to take a class to take Photoshop. But Affinity works about as well, and it's fairly intuitive, and Procreate can do a lot of adjustments, and you can do a lot of edits on your iPhone editing a photo. So I have not gone into using Photoshop to manipulate data, but I have used a lot of programs or features on a phone that cover most of it.
That's Xfinity, right? Is that what you said?
Affinity?
Affinity. Someone mentioned that, one of the other confabs, I forget, it's Frank maybe or somebody. That's pretty cool. Kathy, are you on there today? Kathy Durden, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, what?
I was wondering if you were there. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, tell us real quick, next week you are featured and I'm looking forward to it. You're going to be talking about.
I'm not next week. I'm next week?
Aren't you next week? No, you're after, sorry.
I thought it was the 19th.
No, you are. Let me fix that. Watch how I do this. Yeah, it's, the 19th. Hold on a second.
I can talk about what I'm going to do the 19th.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's cool too. Would you? Look at that. Okay, what are you going to do? 19th, he's going to do mixing flesh tones.
Very important.
Yes, and
I could talk about it, and I literally just got back from picking blueberries at Berry's farm, so I'm a little frazzled, but anyway, and it was awful hot out there. I'm going to do skin tones, and what I have done And the painting is not done, so I'm not sharing it because I'm staring at it thinking, ugh. I'm at the ugh stage. So I'm going to show you what I know I need to fix. But I'm going to show you the progression of how I use paint skin tone and my model. Let's see, maybe I can pull up the image that the image that I picked for myself, which was really crazy, because it's.
You want to turn your video on?
No, I'm not turning my video on.
Oh,
Because I'm not going to do video. I'm not going to do my video.
okay.
I'm showing skin tones, and I'm going to show you how I did skin
No,
tone.
I was talking about your video right now. See if you were going to show something.
Oh, well, I'm looking to see if I can pull up an image. Well, that's not the image. I'm looking to see if I can find the image that I am. Is this the image? Nope, that's not the image either. I was crazy enough to pick an image. Oh, there it is. Okay. So let me turn my video on, and I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
And you can see the craziness that I decided to do because I had a horrible picture. Horrible, horrible, horrible. But I wanted to do this. So
Can we spotlight her?
Yeah, I'll spotlight you. There you are.
So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, you've disabled screen sharing.
You're on.
You've disabled screen sharing, Ron.
We can see you.
Yeah, but I'm going to show an image.
You want to hold on a second. Let me enable share. No, it's turned on. Oh, well.
No. I could turn my computer and you can see the really bad painting.
All right, yeah, turn it over there, would you?
No, you
I
can't.
figured this out.
All right, let's see if you can see. Okay. There we go. There we go. It's not good. But what I'm going to do is show you, and the painting, the image that I had of these two women was backlit. So I've been trying to figure out how to create something from a very bad image, which I was going to show you, but since I can't do screen sharing,
We'll see it in a couple of weeks.
you'll see it in a couple of weeks. You'll see where I started on a very bad image. But what I really wanted to do was show the progression of colors that I put down. So I'm the exact opposite of Nina. I paint all over the place. And I believe you got to, for me, I have to work the whole painting all at the same time. So I'm going to, I've been taking pictures of how I did this. So I'm going to do a PowerPoint showing you how I got from blank piece of paper to finished product, which hopefully is better than what you would see currently, which is terrible.
Well, that's kind of what I like about the ConFab is a lot of different styles, and tell you what, we're anxious to see it. Well,
Right.
we're running out of time, and I'd like to hear any closing thoughts from Nina.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk about my process and planning for a picture, and that there are a lot of steps before you get to the good part of putting the color on the paper. When we were talking about different styles, one last thing about skin tones is that for little kids, my tip is to use Winsor Newton Yellow Ochre Light, and then cerulean and a rose or an opera. So you're going to very light, high key palettes for children that are very fair. And
Yes.
I'm sure when Kathy will be talking about darker skin tones in that range. And I had heard a tip that if you think that your skin tone's off in color, a little too orange or something, especially if you're doing a self-portrait, go get your makeup and put it on the paper and match it when you're mixing colors. And that will help guide you to what color you are.
I gotta try that.
Yeah, Ron.
So I want to ask you a question. So Winsor Newton, yellow ochre light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's great for really pale skin tones.
And you don't find yellow ochre to be too opaque.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, now I've got to leave this webinar and immediately go buy another color because I've never tried. I had actually knocked yellow ochre out of my palette because it was too opaque. So, and then I've gone to raw sienna and I go around and around on different raw siennas. My class will tell you that I periodically fire another raw sienna, every other week. So now time to try a new color.
Barnes Millish, who's in the UK and did a lot of portraiture, and I took a class from her. She used the yellow ochre light, and Pam Winger, who does a lot of really pretty portraiture work, had recommended.
Yellow ochre light. Okay, time to go buy another tube of paint.
Does anyone use Naples Yellow?
I just started using Naples Yellow. I haven't used it for skin tones. Again, it's Naples Yellow has a lot of opacity, and I paint very transparent. So but I did just start painting with it, but it's not for.
I saw a demo by a Chinese artist, and he explained shadows. Instead of thinking about them as darker colors, think about them as opaque colors. And that really changed my mindset about skin. Opaque being a shadow. It was an interesting thought, I believe.
Huh.
Okay. We've run out of time, everybody.
Okay.
What was the other color? What was the other color she put in with the yellow?
blues.
Cerulean and permanent rose, or opera.
And you use Winsor Newton cerulean?
Yeah.
Okay. That's another one that I go through every manufacturer known to man.
Oh yeah. And they're all different, but I like their cerulean.
Okay. Thank you,
Well,
Ron.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Next week, Don Taylor. Topic is plein air painting. He is well known and just fascinating, his approach to plein air. And we'd like to encourage all of you, bring your comments and ideas along with him, and we'll hear from everybody and your questions. So we'd like to get more discussion going in the future sessions. And Nina, you did awesome, and thank you so much. A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Fun to work with, and we're going to close actually with your painting, the montage for those of you who may have missed it. So thanks, Nina, and
Thank you, Nina.
for jumping in there.
Thanks.
Let's see. There we go.